Bodybuilding is a sport of dedication, genetics, and sheer willpower, but sometimes even the most gifted athletes don't reach their full potential. Whether due to injuries, bad luck, politics, or personal choices, some bodybuilders had everything it took to become legends, but never fully capitalized on their gifts. In this video, we're counting down the top 10 wasted potentials in bodybuilding, athletes who could have achieved so much more, but for one reason or another fell short of what they were truly capable of. Let's get into it. I'm going to start the video with the only active bodybuilder on this list today, Rubiel Mosquera, who's not only competing but is actually at the beginning of his professional career. He's 29 years old, earned his pro card in late 2023 at the Prague Pro, and has only competed in 2 pro-level shows, the Prague Pro and Dubai Pro last year. I decided to add him to this list because since turning pro, he has been announced for at least 5 or 6 shows, but he always dropped out for different reasons. It really looks like his mind isn't fully in it, man, and it's such a pity. He's like an anomaly in the world of bodybuilding. His crazy proportions make the other pros look like they're in a different division when standing next to him. I have never seen anything like it before. He's really in a league of his own. Now, I really hope I'll be proved wrong and that he fulfills his potential. But if his career continues the way it started, he's going to be an easy number 1 on this list when he's past his prime. Next, at number 9, we actually have Rubiel's trainer and mentor Chris Cormier, which might explain Rubiel's case, but I digress. Now, Chris didn't have a wasted career. He was a 2-time top 3 finisher at the Olympia and famously placed second at the Arnold Classic 6 times in a row. He could have easily won an Olympia or at least an Arnold, but he didn't win either in his career. It's true that at the Arnold, he finished second behind Flex Wheeler in 2000, behind Ronnie Coleman in 2001, 3 times behind Jay Cutler in the following 3 years, and behind Dexter Jackson in 2005. We're talking about some of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, but the sad thing is that genetically Chris wasn't behind any of these guys. He had it all, crazy proportions, a great back, everything. However, his notorious nightlife and partying, combined with a sloppy diet, prevented him from fully capitalizing on his genetics and wasted his true potential. At number 8, we have Victor Martinez, who had a different case than the previous 2 athletes. A bad judging call and injury and then bad timing prevented him from fully reaching his potential. After a rapid rise in the Olympia rankings in the mid-2000s, Ronnie Coleman himself said Victor would be his heir to the throne. At the 2007 Olympia, Victor Martinez was robbed of the title in one of the most controversial Olympias of all time. After that, he missed 2008 due to a serious knee injury and he was never the same again. Following that, we saw the rise of other greats like Phil Heath and Kai Green, who dominated the sport for the next decade. Victor was never the same again, physique-wise, but before the injury, he had it all. I always like to say he was like a real-life wide clavicle version of Phil Heath. Huge arms, a great back, and crazy muscle bellies. In 7th place, I have Marcus Ruhl. Probably few of you know that Marcus only won 2 pro shows in his entire career, the Canada Pro in 2000 and the infamous 2002 Night of Champions. Aside from that, he didn't win anything else, let alone a major show like the Arnold Classic or Mr. Olympia. While he has his own legacy as arguably the freakiest mass monster of all time, he could have done so much more. Personally, I see his potential as similar to Jay Cutler's. Not the cleanest aesthetics, but on the other side, all the mass in the world. The difference between the two was conditioning. While Jay wasn't the most consistent, there were many instances where he came in diced to the bone. Marcus never did that, not even at that New York Pro where the footage might contradict me, but the HD pictures won't. Marcus Ruhl's name will forever be synonymous with bodybuilding, but he could have been so much more. In 6th place, I have a guy on the other end of the spectrum, Brian Buchanan, with arguably the craziest aesthetic upper body you will ever see. He made a name for himself in the 80s in Europe, outside of the IFBB, but by the end of the decade, when he came to the IFBB, he never placed higher than 7th at the 1988 Mr. Olympia. At the time, Lee Haney was dominating the scene with his crazy 30-inch waist and wide shoulders. Brian had a ridiculous 27-inch waist, better abs, crazy wide shoulders, and better arms than Lee. While Lee had a better back, Brian's back was a strong point too. If he had brought his legs up to match his upper body, he could have potentially been an even more exaggerated version of Lee Haney. From what I've read and seen, Brian became unmotivated, wanted a different lifestyle, and didn't have the urge to conquer bodybuilding. He had a brief comeback in 1998, which only left everyone asking, what if? In 5th place, we have the legendary Victor Richards, who remains one of the biggest what-ifs in bodybuilding history. When he first appeared in magazines in the late 1980s, he was called the biggest bodybuilder to have ever lived. Rumors said his thighs were 35 inches at just 21 years old. His case is pretty strange. He obtained his pro card in Nigeria but somehow never managed to compete in the IFBB. From what I've read, Joe Weider was backing him, but even so, something political behind the scenes prevented him from competing at the IFBB level. He was so big yet also aesthetic, with a small waist and a pleasing look. In the 90s, he would have dominated any IFBB show, including the major ones like the Arnold Classic and maybe even the Olympia. Seeing what Nigerian genetics are producing today, with guys like Samson Dauda and Andrew Jack, Victor Richards remains one of the biggest wasted potentials in bodybuilding. In 4th place, I have Marko Savolainen, a Finnish bodybuilder best known for having arguably the most impressive biceps of all time. Like Arnold's size with Ronnie's definition, a deadly combination. His most famous look was at the 1997 Finland Grand Prix, the same show where we probably witnessed the best Kevin Levrone of all time. Marko finished 7th at that show, but if you ask me and most fans, he should have never placed lower than 2nd. His complete package, with the craziest arms you'll ever see and a well-rounded physique, was overlooked. That's why I call him a glitch in the matrix, because at any other IFBB show he competed in, he was far from replicating that look. Because of his unreal 1997 Finland Grand Prix physique, Marko Savolainen remains one of the biggest what-ifs and wasted potentials in bodybuilding. In 3rd place, we have Flex Wheeler, and unlike most other names on this list, his career is far from being considered wasted. However, given his genetics, arguably the greatest of all time, and the fact that he never won a Mr. Olympia title, he definitely deserves a mention here. Say what you want about Flex Wheeler, but the way he looked in 1993, both at the Arnold Classic and the Olympia, is something we will never witness again. It was like having Andrew Jack's structure with Phil Heath's muscle bellies. Probably the only thing you could take away from the 1993 Flex Wheeler was that he didn't have the widest frame. Aside from that, he had everything. Crazy aesthetics, thick arms and shoulders, a great back, insane lower body development, everything was there. It's so frustrating that his name will never be associated with the Sandow Trophy. That's why even though his legacy is far from wasted, his genetic potential makes him worthy of being on this list. In 2nd place, I have Cedric McMillan, who was just so good, man. Cedric was like a taller, wider clavicle version of Flex Wheeler. His look at the 2012 New York Pro still blows my mind. I'll probably upset the Dorian Yates fans with this, but his front lat spread was way better than anything I've ever seen from Dorian. Cedric had round shoulders and arms, a powerful back and strong legs. He had it all. But the thing with him was that he never fully dedicated himself to bodybuilding. He was serving in the military, which is honorable of course, but for bodybuilding, it was a waste that we never saw his full potential on the Olympia stage. In my opinion, nobody could have beaten a 100% Cedric, arguably not even Phil Heath, who was dominating the sport at the time. Sadly, Cedric passed away in 2022, but he will always be remembered in the bodybuilding world for what he was, an astonishing bodybuilder and an even better human being. In first place, I have the one and only Jurassic Paul Dillet, and honestly, he's the reason I wanted to make this video in the first place. I recently stumbled across footage from the 1996 Ironman, and man, this has to be the most impressive thing I've ever seen in bodybuilding. If you read between the lines and ignore his awful posing, you soon realize this was something unique. I mean, I've seen this guy standing next to all-time greats like Ronnie Coleman and Dorian Yates, and he was literally dwarfing them. Looking at his physique here, I noticed that he had better arms than Phil Heath, better legs and calves than Dorian, a crazy chest, and on top of all that, a very aesthetic midsection and overall look. Now, everyone talks about his weak back, but I ask you, does that look like a weak back? No chance. I don't know why, but he was never able to flex his back properly because, from what I see, he had great genetics, great muscle separation, and great lower lat insertions. His conditioning was also on point. There are a lot of ways you can put this, but Paul Dillet has to be the biggest wasted potential of all time in bodybuilding. Let me know in the comment section if you agree with my rankings and if you have any other suggestions. Who did I miss? Should I make a part 2? Thanks for watching and see you next time.